The woman who once slept on my dorm room floor just handed me a receipt that cost more than my car. Rowan stared at the crumpled paper in his trembling hands, the numbers blurring as the rooftop bar's neon lights painted everything in shades of electric blue and gold. $12,000 for one night, for her family's celebration of a birthday that probably cost more than most people's weddings. "Leah," he whispered, but she was already walking away, her designer heels clicking against the marble floor like a countdown to something ending. The memory hit him like a physical blow. 7 years ago, cramped in his tiny dorm room, sharing instant ramen at 2 a.m. while she worried about her next tuition payment. Leah Winters, brilliant, fierce, beautiful Leah, who wore the same 3 sweaters all winter and counted every penny. Now she stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline, her silk dress catching the light like liquid starlight. She looked untouchable, royal almost, like she belonged in this world of crystal chandeliers and champagne that cost more per bottle than his monthly rent. "You're quiet," she said, without turning around, her voice carrying that new edge it had, developed somewhere between her MBA and her promotion to VP at her father's company. "I'm processing," Rowan replied, pocketing the receipt. Around them, her family laughed and clinked glasses worth more than his entire wardrobe. Her mother's jewelry caught the light with every gesture, a constellation of diamonds that seemed to mock his simple wedding band. Processing what exactly? Leah finally turned, and for a moment, just a split second, he saw the girl who used to fall asleep in his arms while studying organic chemistry. The girl who cried when she couldn't afford new textbooks, the girl who promised him that money would never change them. When did we stop being us? The words escaped before he could stop them. Her face went carefully blank, the mask she'd perfected over the past 2 years sliding into place. "We evolved, Rowan. I evolved." The pain in his chest was sharp, immediate. Into someone who spends $12,000 on one party, into someone who can afford to. Her chin lifted, defiant. Into someone whose family doesn't have to worry about whether they can pay for their daughter's wedding. That hit home. Their wedding, postponed 3 times because of his student loans, his struggling teaching career, his inability to give her the life she'd grown accustomed to. Across the terrace, her father raised his glass. Marcus Winters, CEO, philanthropist, the man who'd built an empire from nothing and expected his daughter to do the same. The man who'd never quite hidden his disappointment that Leah had married a high school history teacher. "Leah, darling," her mother's voice cut through the tension like a blade wrapped in silk. "Come take photos with the family." Leah's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Of course, Mother." As she walked away, Rowan caught her wrist gently. Her skin was warm, familiar, real beneath the cool facade. "Remember when you said you'd never let them turn you into someone you're not?" For a heartbeat, her mask slipped completely. He saw exhaustion there and something that looked dangerously close to desperation. "That girl was naive, Rowan. She thought love was enough. Isn't it?" The question hung between them like a challenge. Around them, the city glittered below, a sea of lights and possibilities that felt suddenly cold and distant. "No," she whispered, but her hand lingered in his for just a moment too long. "It's not." She pulled away, leaving him standing alone by the window, watching her pose with her family like she was born to it. Like she belonged to them now, not to him. But Rowan knew better. He'd seen the way her smile never quite reached her eyes anymore. He'd felt her wake up at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling like she was trapped in a beautiful prison. The Empress never kneels, but sometimes she forgets how to stand. The rain hammered against their penthouse windows 3 days later, each drop like an accusation against the glass. Leah sat at her marble kitchen island, still in her business suit at 11 p.m., scrolling through acquisition reports that blurred together like a fever dream of numbers and projections. "You missed dinner," Rowan said quietly, emerging from their bedroom in the faded NYU t-shirt she used to steal from him in college. I had a working dinner with the Singapore clients. The lie came so easily now, it barely registered. The truth was messier. She'd sat in her car outside their favorite pizza place from college for an hour, trying to remember what it felt like to want something simple. Rowan moved behind her, his presence warm and familiar. When his hands settled on her shoulders, she almost broke. Almost turned around and buried her face in his chest and confessed everything. How the weight of expectations was suffocating her. How she felt like she was disappearing piece by piece into someone she didn't recognize. Instead, she tensed. I have 3 more reports to review. His hands stilled. Leah, when was the last time we talked? Really talked? We're talking now. No, we're not. You're performing. There's a difference. The words hit too close to home. She spun on her stool to face him, and the movement sent her laptop sliding. Instinctively, they both reached for it, their hands colliding, fingers interlacing for just a moment. Time stopped. She looked up into his eyes, those impossibly warm brown eyes that had seen her at her most vulnerable, most real, and felt something crack inside her chest. I'm scared, she whispered, the admission torn from somewhere deep. Rowan's thumb traced across her knuckles, the gesture achingly familiar. Of what? Of losing myself completely. Of becoming her. She nodded toward the window, toward the glittering corporate towers where her mother's office sat like a throne room 40 floors up. Of waking up one day and realizing I can't find my way back to who I used to be. Then don't become her. It's not that simple. It is. He cupped her face in his hands, thumbs brushing away tears she didn't realize were falling. It is that simple, Leah. You choose. Every day, every moment, you choose. For those who crave stories of love that transcends all boundaries, subscribe for more tales that will stir your soul. The space between them crackled with 7 years of shared history, of inside jokes and whispered dreams and promises made in dorm rooms that smelled like coffee and hope. She could feel herself gravitating toward him, drawn by the magnetic pull of everything they used to be. What if I choose wrong? She breathed. Then we figure it out together, like we always have. His lips were a breath away from hers when her phone buzzed. A text from her father. Board meeting moved to 7 a.m. Don't be late. The Tokyo deal depends on your presentation. The spell broke. Leah pulled back, the moment shattering like glass. I have to prepare for tomorrow. Rowan's hands dropped to his sides. Of course you do. The resignation in his voice was worse than anger would have been. She watched him walk toward their bedroom, shoulders set in defeat, and felt something vital tear inside her chest. Rowan, wait. He paused in the doorway without turning around. I'll sleep in the guest room tonight. You need to focus. The door clicked shut with the finality of a coffin lid. Leah sat alone in their kitchen, surrounded by the trappings of success that felt increasingly like prison bars. Outside, the city sparkled with promise and possibility, but inside their glass tower, she felt more isolated than ever. Her reflection stared back at her from the dark window, perfectly styled, expensively dressed, utterly hollow. The Empress had everything she thought she wanted, so why did it feel like losing everything that mattered? The boardroom felt like a cathedral of ambition, all soaring ceilings and intimidating mahogany. Leah stood at the head of the conference table, laser pointer in hand, delivering the presentation that would secure the Tokyo deal and cement her position as heir apparent to the Winters empire. But all she could think about was Rowan's empty coffee mug sitting in their kitchen sink. Miss Winters? Her father's voice cut through her wandering thoughts. The projected quarterly returns? She clicked to the next slide, muscle memory taking. Over. Conservative estimates put us at 34% growth with aggressive projections reaching 47%. Approving murmurs rippled around the table. These men and women, titans of industry, masters of the universe, hung on her every word. She had their respect, their attention, their fear. She had everything except the one thing that had ever truly mattered. Excellent work, Leah. Marcus Winters's smile was sharp with pride and calculation. Tokyo will be impressed. This deal will set us up beautifully for the London expansion. London. Another city, another acquisition, another step up the ladder that seemed to stretch endlessly toward a horizon she no longer wanted to reach. Actually, Dad, the words tumbled out before she could stop them. I need to tell you something. The room went silent. Her father's eyebrows rose in a way that would have terrified her 6 months ago. This isn't the time. It's the only time. Leah set down the laser pointer with a click that echoed in the sudden quiet. I'm done. Done with what, exactly? All of it. The deals, the expansion, the performance. She looked around the table at faces that had become as familiar as family and felt nothing but emptiness. I'm resigning. The explosion of voices was immediate. Shock, outrage, frantic, attempts at damage control. But Leah was already moving, already walking toward the door, already choosing. Leah! Her father's voice boomed behind her. You walk out that door, and you're walking away from everything we built together! She paused, her hand on the brass handle, and turned back one last time. No, Dad. I'm walking toward everything that matters. 20 minutes later, she stood outside Millbrook High School, still in her power suit and designer heels, watching through the classroom window as Rowan taught his AP history class about the Revolutionary War. His passion was infectious. She could see it in the way the students leaned forward, engaged despite themselves. This was who he was. This was who she'd fallen in love with. Not the man she'd tried to mold him into, but the teacher who changed lives one student at a time. The bell rang, and students poured out of the classroom like water through a broken dam. Rowan looked up from his desk and saw her through the window. His expression was unreadable. She pushed through the door, suddenly nervous in a way she hadn't felt since their first date. Shouldn't you be in Tokyo by now? He asked, not looking up from the papers he was grading. I quit. His pen stopped moving. Slowly, he raised his eyes to hers. What? I walked out of the biggest deal of my career, told my father I was done, and came straight here. She took a step closer, her heels clicking on the linoleum floor. I came to find my way back to me. Back to us. Rowan set down his pen, his expression guarded. Leah, you can't just... I know I hurt you. I know I became someone I swore I'd never become. She moved closer still, close enough to see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. But I also know that I'd rather be broke and happy with you than rich and miserable without you. Your family will never forgive you. My family will adapt. They always do. She reached for his hands, relief flooding through her when he didn't pull away. But I couldn't adapt to losing you. I couldn't adapt to losing myself. Leah, his voice was rough with emotion. I love you, she whispered, the words carrying the weight of every choice, every sacrifice, every moment that had led them here. I love you more than success, more than security, more than the approval of people who never really knew me anyway. For a moment, time hung suspended between them like a held breath. Then Rowan's arms came around her, pulling her close, and she felt something that had been frozen inside her chest finally start to thaw. I love you too, he murmured against her hair. I never stopped loving you. They held each other in that empty classroom, surrounded by the dreams and possibilities of the next generation, and Leah finally understood what her mother had never taught her. Sometimes the greatest act of power is knowing when to surrender. Sometimes the strongest thing an empress can do is choose to kneel, not in defeat, but in love. So what now? Rowan asked, pulling back to look at her. Leah smiled, and for the first time in 2 years it reached her eyes. Now we figure it out together, like we always have. Outside, the afternoon sun painted the world in shades of gold and possibility. They had no grand plan, no safety net, no guarantee of anything except each other. It was enough. It was everything. The crown never defined her. Love did. If this story touched your heart, consider subscribing. We post powerful stories of love, loss, and redemption every day.